Welcome to another episode of Heroes of the Heart. And our hero of the heart today is Jackie Cote, who is a freedom coach who helps hyper-driven, successful women who already have money and success, but don't have a life they love, create their dream life filled with freedom, adventure, and love. Jackie's an original Jersey girl at heart who is now living out her dream of freedom, adventure, and love by traveling the country in an RV with her man and two pups, meeting virtual friends and changing lives on her terms, not corporate America's. Welcome to Heroes of the Heart, Jackie. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm curious as to when your adventure on the RV began.
So go back to, pre-COVID times. My boyfriend and I had just started my business, and I was like, oh, we're going to travel a lot more, now that I've got this time freedom and I'm not locked to a job. And then we had all these like international things or like flying places we had to fly to, like programmed, and then COVID hit and it was like, wah. And then somehow we started watching, this is just funny because we started watching RV America, which is like a series, like, and you can see every family living in an RV. And I was like, one way we can travel. And that just kind of kicked the idea off. And then we got the RV during COVID. And then we ended up going a year later. We waited for all the kids to get out of the nest. He's got 4 kids. And the last one went into the military. And we were like, peace out. We are gone. We are leaving. We were in Virginia at the time. So.
Okay. Wow. So the kids are gone. You actually set out in the middle of COVID or during COVID to go on this adventure on the road, which is really kind of interesting because, during COVID, a lot of people started buckling down and closing doors and, locking themselves up and that kind of thing, understandably so. And you're out on the road and going to places that you maybe might not have been before.
Yep. Yeah. And it was June last year that we didn't actually leave full time in the RV. We bought the RV of June 2020. We didn't leave until the June 1st, but then we actually had one of his kids living in the RV with us until July because she didn't have an apartment till then. And then after that, we were like, all right, let's go. And I've always been that person. I don't live in that fear. I see the fear and I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. Let's just go for it anyway. And when the first move, even before the RV, was leaving like the city area of Virginia to the country, which I was like probably more scared to do that than going RV living because the country just felt so far away. But it was the beginning of my coaching journey. And what I discovered in the journey was that I loved the peace and the calm, which I never had in my life. And that's what the country gave me. That's what we were by a lake community. We were able to have like this just nature thing going on and not this hustle and bustle and go and struggle and grind and hustle. And that's what the Northern Virginia area that I used to live in was. So that was the first step of me understanding this concept of like freedom, calm, peace. And you get to have that and you get to have the success and the money. It doesn't have to be like a this or a that.
Yes, and.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's awesome. And I can relate to that to some extent as well. 2 things. One, my wife and I were living, and our kids were living in Tacoma, Washington up until June 2020. And we actually, around March of 2020, we decided we were going to move back to my wife's hometown of Asheville, North Carolina, so 2,400 miles away. And so we set out. We didn't have an RV, but we did have a big U-Haul type truck. And oh my gosh, we had an adventure. It was June. We get into Wyoming and we get literally stopped by a snowstorm because the freeway got closed down.
Oh, no way.
In June, which was not what we were expecting. And there were just some other things that happened going through Nebraska and I think South Dakota or whatever. The wind was just so strong that it was literally blowing semi trucks and RVs off the side of the road, and they were on their sides, and it was just like, oh my gosh, what have we gotten ourselves into? And but we made it all the way across the country, no mishaps, no difficulties, but it was definitely an adventure. It was,
That's awesome. And then something that just shows you um how we get to pivot, how we get to adapt. I was just at odd story, but like one of the animals on the property like had to like lose an arm. It was a kitten, and how they just start walking the next day, and
mm,
how adaptable and easy like they make it look. And then for us, sometimes we just overthink everything. So when we get to experience like you just had and what I'm experiencing now, it's like you pivot. It's just part of life. I like to say that there's discomfort in both directions. If we stay where we're at and we don't go for what we want, it's uncomfortable. And
mm,
if we go for what we want, it's uncomfortable. So choose your discomfort.
right. Wow. That's true. As my wife and I like to watch this show that's on the internet, probably on cable somewhere, called Wizard of Paws. And what it is this what is he called? What is it called? Makes prosthetics for animals. And
Hmm.
last night there was a terrier Labrador mix that had lost or was born without its two front legs and still got around,
Hmm.
hopping on its back legs, kind of. And they joked around it being like a T-Rex that I walked kind of like that, right? But totally adaptable. I mean, it's amazing what we can do when we say yes rather than no. When
And
we say,
yeah, no, it's funny when we don't know what the worries could be. Like if we just like I had just had a call with somebody earlier, and she said my husband started baking for no reason. And then I was like, well, what made you start baking? He goes, well, I didn't know I couldn't. Like there's no, like, you know what I mean? Like if you don't know you can't,
right,
then there's no can't.
yes,
So,
yes,
and that's how animals are like, they don't sit there and go, well, should I walk? Maybe I can't. No, should I try? They just walk, no matter how
right,
many legs
right.
they have.
I
Oh, I
want to
love
get
that.
from here to there, and the way to get there is to walk. And so,
Ex- exactly. I'm gonna find a way. I don't know that there's not a way. Like animals don't know there's not a way. So.
yeah, isn't that amazing? And how true that is for our lives too. When
Hmm.
we can plan everything to the nth degree. Like our move from Tacoma to Asheville, we'd been across the country numerous times, but there were so many things that happened that we didn't expect. I mean, I wasn't expecting a snowstorm in Wyoming in June. Another time of year, yeah, that totally makes sense. But June, I didn't expect that. And to see trucks and semis and RVs on their side that had been blown off the road because of the high winds, and to feel that while I'm driving. I'm driving along and the truck is kind of swaying back and forth, and I'm just like telling myself it'll be okay. That just keep going, don't stop, and
Hmm.
that will make it. And we did.
Mm.
But it's so easy for when the winds are blowing on us in our lives that
Hmm.
us to shrink away and to huddle up and get into fetal position or whatever, and give up on our dreams and the possibilities that we have in front of us.
Yeah, totally. Like something I've discovered on this journey too is we like to live in our past that we can't change, and that's usually what causes us to create these safety mechanisms to keep us from the unknown, because like the brain knows the known is safe, right?
Mm,
We'd love to do everything from the heart, but the brain is really powerful and it just knows, well, if we don't do this, we'll stay safe from getting hurt, safe from not being loved, or whatever the scenario is. And but it comes from all this stuff from our past, which I say everything from this point past doesn't matter anymore. Like even like everything we've set up to this point, like it's in the past. We can't change it. We can take the memories that we liked, we can leave the rest, we can take the lessons, we can leave the rest. But we also like to live in that future worries. Like we like to worry about all the things that might happen, might not happen, da, 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 da.
mm,
And that's something we can't control. And so I try to teach people like the best place, and the heart has a lot to do with this, is to live in that place of what you desire as if it's already happened in the today. And so like what do
mm,
you want to feel, what do you want to experience, like what is all the stuff that you desire? And it's unknown and it's scary, but at least it's like joyful and fun to think about and exciting. And then like you bring it and you get to live in all these emotions today. And and whether things work out exactly the way planned, which they never do, right? But as whether they work out this way or that way, a snowstorm in June, it's still better to live in that joy, fun, excitement, like the going for it and go through that discomfort than it is to be in a place we can't control, we can't change. And so
Absolutely.
I choose to live in the now of what I desire for the future.
Yes.
So
Yes, exactly. And that we can create in our minds, in our hearts, what it is we want to have in the future. That we don't have to wait for that, someone to wave a magic wand or for us to get the golden ticket or whatever, but that we can create that by just experiencing it right now.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's knowing that we have that power. Like it's just that excites the heck out of me. Like how much power we have as individuals to do that. And people are like, oh, the 3 years ago, if you told me I'd believe in any woo-woo stuff, I would have been like, you're crazy. But now I'm like the whole manifestation or like what you call into your life and like energetics and all that. I get it now. And the people go, I can't manifest anything. I'm like, yeah, you can. Everything in your life, good, bad, ugly. We brought it into our lives by
Yes.
the choices and the energies we put out. And they're like, no, I'm like, no, you did. I'm like, but the good news is you can also do the opposite. You can also call in and bring and energetically connect with what is beautiful for you. And
Absolutely.
that's leading from the heart. And it's funny that like I keep looking at the word heart behind you and I love it because I have what would love do on my wrist. Like I never got a
Mm.
tattoo in my life. And someone said that one day, I'm like, that's a tattoo. And I was like, for like decades, I'm like, I'm gonna get a tattoo. And I never did. But then someone said that and I was like, that's a tattoo. What
That
would
is a
love do?
perfect one. What would
It just
love do?
reminds me, right? And then in the end is on the back is unconditional love symbol.
Oh wow.
And so I was like, I'll never get a tattoo. I can't commit to that kind of like writing on
Right.
my arm, like on my body. And then I was like, I can commit to what would love do. Unconditional
Absolutely.
love. So
I'm totally with you. I don't have any tattoos on my body, partly because I there's nothing that I love variety. I love new things, and I can't imagine having something emblazoned somewhere that is going to be there until either I die or it gets removed somehow. Um, but I can totally relate to what would love do. I mean that is an awesome, and what a way to remind yourself. I'm sure it kind of reminds me, and honestly looks a little bit like when you tie a string around a ribbon or something around your wrist to remind you that, well, what would love do in this case?
yeah. And that's actually like I got it so it's facing me. So like I'm sitting here and I can read it in this direction. Um because in that same scenario of like past, future, this, that, like all I have to stop and go, what would love do? Like right now,
Mm,
what would love do? Whether it's what would love do in the next step in my business, like what would love do in the response to this conversation in my relationship, what would love do in this interaction with this other human, like what would love do with my animal. I mean, it's just it fits
yes.
everywhere and anywhere with what um and there's something that I when I first started on my coaching journey before I opened my business and I was being coached by others, someone told me about this thing called an anchor, and to have
Mm,
something on your wrist to anchor you into, to break the state but anchor you into your why, right? We all talk about what's the
mm,
why beneath the why. And I wore this bracelet. It was like a chakra bracelet. I didn't even know what the chakras were, but it happened to be. I thought it was pretty, so that's why I got
yeah.
it. And I had it on, and it helped me in so many. I wore it for a year straight. Didn't care if it matched my outfit or anything like that. I just wore it because it reminded me, like I overcame, a bad relationship with food and my body, and for like a 30-year ongoing thing that I just never talked about. And this bracelet helped rewire. Sorry, dog just threw a bone across the room. Rewire the rewire the thought of me and the behaviors I was doing, and I was just able to go, it would break the state and it would be on my wrist. So like whenever I
Mm,
would go to do the action that related, then I was able to go, okay, what can I think instead? What would serve me? And if I knew what love do, I would probably say that, but I would say like, what would nourish my body instead of this? What's another
mm,
way to deal with this emotion? And that anchor like literally anchored me in for that year and rewired the pathways in my brain on how I
that's
think.
awesome.
So
That's awesome. I'm reading a book called Happy Money by Ken Honda.
mm,
And one of the things he talks in there about is that there are two primary sources of motivation. There is love and there is fear. And, you know, we can, when we do something, are we acting out of love? What would love do? Or are we doing something out of fear because of, you know, whatever? One is expansive, one is, you know, constrictive. And when we live into that space of what would love do, for example, that, you know, that's where possibility, you know, and well, love lives. It's where joy lives. It's where all the things we really want to have in our lives lives, is in that expansive, joyful, loving place. And we get to have the choice as to which way we're going to go. Are we going to live out of fear, or are we going to live out of love?
I love that. So that was Happy Money. I'm going to look that one up.
Yes, it's a good one.
It's totally true. I love that example.
So I am curious, two things. One, you talked about, you know, your kind of relationship with your body and diet and all that kind of thing. I just happened to see a post on your Facebook profile about a bikini and you kind of your experience with that. Can you share with the audience what your experience there was?
Yes. I will talk about the discomfort of making that, but the what would love do response to it, you know. I've always been somebody who has my like weight or size or this and that's never stopped me from anything. Like I've always been somebody who would do it anyway, and like nothing stopped me, and I've had a very active life. I'm very healthy, like I don't have any issues, but I've always been larger to society's norms when it comes to the body. And as much as I've been confident and everything, I've never been willing to put on a two-piece suit, because my definition of that is somebody who has to have a particular body, right? And like I'm on this property with some friends where we're staying in San Antonio, and they have a pool, and she's also somebody who's been battling just with like feeling good in her body lately and stuff. And she decided, she's like, what do you think? And I'm the one who's always like mentoring and coaching her. And she's like, let's put a two-piece on. It's a safe atmosphere, right? It's just family, it's just friends. And I was like, even me, who's like sitting here coaching, like helping her like 24/7, I was like, huh, that's a good point. Let's just do it. But my point, like, and I don't know if you saw the video that I did after it. I like posted the post and then I did the live. And the live was about like, you don't have to like go like from like zero, like never wearing it for 40, I'm turning 50 this year, never wearing it for 50 years of my life, to like going on the beach with thousands of people in a bikini. Like you could rip the band-aid off and jump off the cliff, and you can totally do that.
Yes.
Or you can manage your nervous system and do it in steps. And so this was like a first step. And gotta tell you, it was really cold. It's really cold. I'm used to like complete coverage, and I got in the pool and I was like, whoa, that's so much colder against the skin than it is against like a one-piece bathing suit. Point number one. But then I talk a lot about in my coaching about simple emotions and complex emotions. Like we've got happy, sad, neutral. And as we layer thoughts and feelings to something, it gets more complex, and that's where it gets harder to deal with, and it gets more like longer rebound times and all sorts of stuff. And that's where it snowballs, if you want to call it. But with this, I was like, okay, I can sit here and I could just sit in this discomfort. And when I talk about like simple emotions, like just sit in the sadness. Like it's okay. Sit in it and just let it will pass through you. And you don't have to go to angry and worry and all these other things. It gets to just pass through you. So I kind of applied that same concept to just sit on the chair with the two-piece and all the stuff, you know, the stuff that I'm thinking that's showing and this and that. And then at the end of the experience, I was like, I didn't die. I'm still here to show. Right. Like, and I use that line on my clients all the time. I'm like, just click the button and go Facebook Live. Like, and then tell me, like, call me afterwards and I'll show you didn't die. Yeah. You know, it's like our brain thinks a bear is chasing us and we're about to die. And it's just not true. It's just all the, you know, the thoughts and the, you know, and our thoughts and our feelings create our actions and our results, you know, that's it. And if we can change the thoughts and feelings. So it was working on changing the thoughts and feelings around the concept of like, everybody is just perfect the way it is. And if you could love it along the way, you can desire it. Here's the funny part about whole body image and stuff. There was a point where I was starting to like change the body composition, and I started feeling guilty that I was like on a mission to change my body composition, because I just went through telling the world, love your body the way it is. So now the reverse guilt was coming in of like, don't change your body, because you're coaching people and telling people to love your body the way it is. And if you change your body, then you're going against. And I was like, wow, this brain is an amazing, right? Like it made like that's just a silly conversation, but we have all sorts of thoughts about things that create this like way more complicated than it needs to be. When in
Mm,
reality, it's like put it on, feel the feels, sit through the discomfort on the other side, and then wash, rinse, repeat, and try it again. So
yes.
I'll do it again here, and then I'll try it again at like another campground where I don't know people, and then I'll just keep doing it until it becomes something that is just normal, you know. So yeah, that was a fun experience, and I was it was very cool to see how much response and like how many people private messaged me, and then I did the video. I got some really cool one-liners out of it, and it's just I love that. That's what my world is all about. Is like I'm here just to share the story of the heart, like you do too, and help people see that like you get to have all of the body freedom, love freedom, time freedom, money freedom, all that stuff. But like you get to have it all. It doesn't have to be like I got to work really hard so I can't have relationships.
Mm,
I've got to like stress myself out about being healthy and eating right and working out so I can't enjoy my life. Like no, it's
mm,
not a like we said earlier. It's not. It's a this and I call it a
yes.
this. It's not a this or that. It's a this and that.
Yes.
So,
Yes. That's awesome. And I love the way that you talk about, that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to go from 0 to 60. You don't have to go from, I don't know, and I'm not into sizes at all, so I can't even. I was thinking I'd go, from size 20 to size 2 or whatever. It doesn't have to happen like that overnight, and it doesn't even, we get to design and get to listen to our heart and to our body in order to figure out, what works for us. You know, and I can honestly really relate to the, although I've never worn a two-piece suit, I wear a one-piece suit, and I don't wear, and I've always been,
you
um,
could, if you really want to wear the two piece, you're more than welcome.
yeah,
There's
I
no
could.
judgment. There's no judgment on this part. Like you do you, boo.
That might be an option someday, but
I've
um,
seen it with like back. I mean, I went to college, so all the sororities and the fraternities, like we very much dressed up, hazing. I'm just kidding.
so that is a possibility. But how do we get comfortable in our in this suit? Whether it be a one piece, a two piece, or a
Hmm.
3-piece suit. That we get to choose. We get to create and experience the comfort that we allow in our human suit. In
Mm,
who we are as human beings, and whether that's being putting on a bathing suit to go to the pool, or going to a networking event, or even just going into work when the things aren't going the way that you would like them to. We get
mm,
to choose our experience, and it doesn't going for me, it was going from severe depression to living and loving my life. That I could continue to stay in that depressed, really uh, despairing state, or I can work towards getting to a joyful state. And for me, it
hmm.
was something that actually took years for me to make that transition, but it did happen. And for us to go from I being having discomfort from being in our suit to being comfortable in our suit, as long as we
Hmm.
keep moving in that direction and keep taking the next step, then we do eventually get there. And it
Mm,
doesn't have to happen like that, which is one of the cool things about life, is that uh, you know as long as we keep believing and hoping and heading in that direction of whatever it is we want, time freedom, money freedom, social freedom, whatever,
hmm.
that it is there, and we just need to keep moving towards it.
Mm. That's so good, and congratulations on that transition for you, and having the patience to go, like the patience and the tenacity and like the belief, the believing, and the trust and surrender, because that was the biggest shift in my business in the last 3 years, and the biggest shift from when I was like not making any money to when I was making money, let's say, was I had to step into trust, like lean in and then lean back and surrender and trust that I'm enough. Trust that
Yes.
I'm safe. Trust that I'm supported and trust. And that for me, like I felt like I call myself a recovering I got it girl. Cause for 40 years, I got it. I did it on my own. Like mom died when I was 5, and then my dad was raising 6 kids, and like everybody was so busy, and I was the baby, and it was just like, okay, I got to figure it out. No one's here. I'm going to figure it out on my own. I'm going to figure out how to do the dishes, how to do the laundry, how to like come up with my, tuition for college. Like I got to figure all this out. And so I felt like, which is total BS, I felt like I did this life on my own and nobody helped me. There's
Mm,
no higher power, no nothing, no this. And then finally I was like, no, you ain't, you were not alone and you never were, you know?
mm,
And when I got that realization and that understanding, and that was when my business ticked over and just my personal like well-being in my life, because it was like I got to know that I'm not in this alone. That's a real important one. Like we're not in this alone.
yes.
We've got wonderful people sharing stuff like you have, and all of this just amazing stuff to tap into, and people and family and higher power. And that's when life got so much easier, when we can just know that we're not alone. And oh, there was another point. I scrolled. I'll go back to it.
But that's such a great point, and when I was in that depressed state, that was one of the major contributing factors is that I felt totally alone, that
Hmm.
it was me and me against me, honestly. And, first of all, how do I turn that relationship around with myself? But then in turning that relationship around with myself, it also turned my relationship around with other people, when
Yes.
I began to let other people in, both on the happy days and the sad days, that, that there was a much more connection. And, when we allow ourselves to show up, and again, it goes back to the two-piece bathing suit. When we allow ourselves to show up, and however we look at the time, that our people are going to see us, like really see us, and not just worry, well, why is she doing this, or why is he doing that, or whatever. But the people who we really want to connect with and who want to connect with us will see us as we are, and we don't have to worry about putting on this perfection suit that doesn't even exist.
Yes. The you hit it on the nose when you said, when I got to me, every then like other people were like either attracted or came into my life and this and that. And I can't stress that amazing point enough, that it starts with you. It starts with no longer looking for the external to satisfy the internal need. Really understanding that safety, love, and belonging, which is the foundation to everything in life, love, safety, and belonging has to be found within. And then when it's found within, and you really learn how to tap into that, and that is the core of like what I work with, then you get to the right people that are really meant for you, and that vibration and that way of being and who you really are show up, and the people that aren't meant to be in your life will dissipate and disappear. And that
Mm.
scares people, because that's the known, right? Those are the people that are
Yes,
the known.
exactly.
And and I always ask, I like to start, like one of my first sessions usually is like, so what are you afraid to lose if we go on this
Mm.
journey together? And most of the time it's the people in their life, because there's something inside of them that they know like they're not the best for them. And doesn't that they're not bad people, it's just they're ready to grow and those people are not. And so I like to say, you do you, always come back to you, really just work on you, like learn how to love and belong, like feel safe inside and all that stuff without any of the external stuff, and watch who's standing in the end.
Mm. Yes.
Amazing people will be standing around you in the end. And the relationships that you have with them, like you just said, are going to be so much deeper and so much richer and real and authentic and organic, and it just makes life easier.
That's absolutely true. And one of the things I often say is that you always have an audience, even if that audience is one. You know that,
Mm-hmm.
and the other thing I say is that audience of one is your most important audience. When you look
Yeah.
at yourself in the mirror, or look at yourself, are you looking through the eyes of love, or are you looking at through the eyes of fear, or disgust, or disdain, or whatever? But our relationship with ourselves is the foundational relationship that we have with other people. It's a relationship we have with our money. It's a relationship we have with our work. It's a
Mm-hmm.
relationship we have with everything, because our who we are shows up in every single relationship we have. And if that relationship with ourselves is going well, then other relationships can go well as well.
So good. So good. There was this one exercise that early on in my coaching that the program I was training with said, all right, here's you've heard of mirror work before where you like stare in the mirror
Mm,
and you say things, right?
yes.
And they went right for like the big one. They're like, I want you to say I love you in the mirror to yourself.
Mm,
And like say it until you can feel it. Because
yes.
so this was me before I did all my inner work. This was me. I'm like, I would be like, I love you. Look over here. Like, I love you. I love you. Like I'd just be doing all these things and I wouldn't look at myself. And I realized, wow, like I've avoided myself for so long. And I come from 30 years of restaurant industry doing leadership management. So there's a lot of noise for like
Mm,
30. I kept my world very noisy so I didn't have to deal with me. And I didn't
yes.
have to like do exactly what you just described. I didn't have to come back to me. I didn't have to deal with me. I didn't have to like put the light on me. I didn't have to do any of that because I was always so busy and so noisy and it kept me busy. And as soon as then when I don't know if you know my story, but I got fired from a job and that's what kickstarted me into my own business. And when
Mm,
I got fired from the job, I was like, all I got is me. Like all I have to listen to and see is me. I'm like, oh no, And but thank God that happened. That was the best thing that
yes.
ever happened to me. And but when I did that I love you exercise, it was like all of a sudden like and you get to a point and when you actually look in your eyes and you can see like the speckles in your eyes and when you're saying
Mm,
it, you go, and you start crying. Like that's what I did. I don't know if you will, but that's what
yes.
I
No,
did.
I totally relate. I mean, for the longest time, whenever I looked in the mirror, which I did not, I mean, I'd look in the mirror to do my hair or whatever, but I didn't have a relationship with that person in the mirror.
Yes.
And when I wasn't doing my hair, I'd always be making goofy faces at myself. Like I'm
Yes.
brushing my teeth or something, and I'm just like, some goofy, disconnected face rather than really looking and seeing myself in that mirror. Right.
Yes. Yes. I remember the moment you're describing it. Like I was the same way. I'm like humor is my deflect. Like humor and keeping everyone else happy and joking and that was the whatever I can do to avoid myself. I was
Yes.
really good at it.
Yeah. Well, I think most of us are really good at avoiding the person in the mirror. We'll
Hmm.
spend all our time out there, chasing around the restaurant or the office building or whatever it may be, as long as we don't have to spend any time with that person that's looking back at us in the mirror. You know,
Yeah.
it,
I remember my dad said something to me. I can't remember how old I was, but it was like one of those moments I think as a kid, like the insecurities kick in and this and that, and like, oh, my friends, da, da, da. And he said, listen, and he was real blunt. He said, the only person that's going to be by your side when you die, absolutely guaranteed, is you. He's like, so that's the
yes,
only person that you really have to like, focus on. And I didn't
yes,
totally get it then because then 30 years later, I'm still, but I remember the saying. I mean, he said that to me. It's true. It's like like you said earlier, like that's the one relationship you're gonna have. So why
yes,
not make it the best one?
yes. The only person who's going to get buried with you is you. You
Yeah,
know that.
exactly. I mean, I pray that we all have people by our side when we pass away and like we have
Right, right.
all that
Yeah,
stuff, but guaranteed you'll be there.
yes, yes. and and when we can be there for ourselves, we can be there for other people too, because we have more to give because we've taken care of the person that is giving, right?
Hmm.
If we deplete ourselves, if we give either more than we have or give what we don't have, put on I mean, spent time in the restaurant industry too. And one of the things that bugged me was that I often had to put on this persona of, being the happy server, bringing the food out and always smiling and all that. And sometimes I was having a crappy day with a smile on my face, or at least an attempt at a smile. And
Hmm.
it just felt so inauthentic. But how often do we do that in our own lives? Whether we're waiting tables or doing something else, how often do we show up without resolving the internal conflict and being unwilling to share that with other people? That when we do things, and I keep referring back to your bathing suit uh, experiment this weekend. But when we do that, when we show up, I'll bet you the relationship you have with your friend who you did it with is probably deeper and more meaningful now than it was a week ago.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny like that. Like I told her, I was like, you inspired me, and she's like, no, 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 no. She's like, it's always you inspiring. I'm like, no, no, no. Like you inspired me. Like I wouldn't have just chosen to purchase one. First of all, like I ordered it online and it showed up. Like I guess I'm putting this on. Like that was the first step. Was like she kept sending me pictures of stuff, and I was like, okay, I can get my thoughts around this. And then I clicked the button and I ordered it, and it showed up. And I don't just order things. I'm not a big online orderer. So for me to do that was like a big deal.
Yeah.
And then I showed her, I was like, it came in and she's like, all right, we're wearing it tomorrow. And I was like, see, like, so it only takes one person to like make you think different. Like,
Yes.
and it only takes one like thing that you hear. And those times like you've heard something a million times, but you heard it, like you really heard it. And that time I heard it because I've talked about it before. I've like own yourself and love yourself. And I do all that stuff. And I realize like it doesn't matter. I can wear a one piece and be just as happy. It's not like I have to wear a two piece to prove anything. No, it was just a point of like, why don't I? Like
Yes.
like, why not? Like there's no right or wrong with any of the kinds of suits I can put on or any of the choices I make. It's just if you have an urge to do it, do it. You have a desire, it's your desire. You're meant for it. So I was like, yeah, let's do it.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome.
and that's how I live most of my life, which is funny that like that one thing hit home for me. And I think it's just because that's like we all have our go-to things that always come back. Like no matter how much work we do, they don't go away. The thoughts don't go away. The things don't disappear. They're still going to come back. And it's like, how do you respond to them each time?
Yes.
And do you let it take you down for like a week? Do you let it take you down for like a day? Do you let it take it down for an hour? Or do you let it take you down for like nothing, like a second, and just be like, oh,
Yeah.
there's that thought again,
Yeah.
and then it goes
Notice
by.
it and let it go. That
Yeah.
it's like oftentimes they refer in meditation circles, it's like the clouds in the sky. It's just like,
Hmm.
well, there it is, and it's passing by, and like, okay, it's gone. You know, rather
I
than
heard,
chasing after that cloud.
yeah, I heard somebody describe it this way, and it's classic. I can't remember where I heard it, so I'd love to give them credit, but I can't remember. But they talk like a buffet, right? And if there's a
Mm.
food you don't like, is there any food you don't like that you won't eat?
Oh yeah, like canned spinach or
Okay, so let's pretend you're going down the buffet and there's canned spinach on the buffet. And for me, it's like cucumbers. I'm like, I'm not really a fan. Do you drop to the floor in the restaurant, kicking and screaming because there's spinach on the buffet? Like, no, like you just walk by the buffet, you walk by the spinach, and you go for the stuff you like, right?
right.
But that's what we do with thoughts. We're like a thought comes in, and we like no, rah, rah, like we like
Right.
just fight
Yes.
it and this and that. But if you just like treat it like a buffet, like take the ones you like,
Mm.
take the good stuff, put it on your plate, and leave the rest. It's that
Mm.
simple, you know?
That's a great analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, well, that's there, and I don't have to do anything with it. I don't have to pick it up. I don't have to hold it. I can just let it be there and get what I want to get. You know,
Yeah. Get all your favorite things and put them on the plate. So what are your favorite thoughts? Like put them on
yeah,
your plate. Get all
absolutely. That's
excited.
awesome.
Leave the other stuff and that. Leave the cucumbers and the melon and the. There's only like three things I don't like, but anything else I
That's
like.
awesome. Well, Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your heart with me and our audience today. I have two last questions for you. One, what is your heart leading you to do today?
Okay. My heart today, it was like the end of March and there was just this like, I don't know, epiphany or this like calling that came in. I was like, you know what? You really haven't like shown up. So my heart today for the whole month of April, but especially today is going live, like and going
Mm,
live every day and sharing something that inspires. So I've had like, and this is what's fun for me is I have all these kind of calls like with you and I had this call with like someone that I met like 2 years ago and we just reconnected and I get all these inspirations. I'm like, which one am I going to go live about? Like, I just have like so many cool things that I want to talk about. So I'm going to take those and bring them into the world and shine the light on what we've talked about into what like she's talked about. So that's one thing for me today. I think, yeah. What's the other question? Did you ask me the second one yet?
I haven't asked you the second question yet. So unless you're like really prescient, you don't know it. But the last question is, how do our listeners connect with you?
Excellent. So I always tell people, and this is real simple, like if you're on Facebook, Facebook personal page, if you want to get to know me as a human, as a coach, whatever, like that is me. And if you met me in person and you look at that, it'll be exactly the same. Like if we ever get to meet, and I do get to meet a lot of my virtual peoples as I travel around with the RV. So I've been able to like actually physically like meet the people that have been like either in my world or we become friends through Facebook or this and that. Maybe we've met virtually, but I'm actually been able to hug a lot of them on my journey, which is
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
awesome.
And so first just come to Facebook and friend me and message me and just say, hey, I saw you on the Heroes of the Heart. I'd love to connect. But you just friend me and most likely I'll say yes, unless, you're a little creepy. No, I'm just kidding. You're not creepy. So, and I that's one. I do have a website at Jackie Cote Coaching. That's being updated right now. I'm excited about that. And trying to think of I'm on Instagram, Jackie Cote Coaching, one thing together. I'm not a huge Instagram, but I think I might be up in that. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And it's so funny. I talk about this, and I literally built my whole business with just a Facebook personal page. My entire business and the success I've had today came from just doing conversations with people, meeting people, having conversations, and just showing up authentically myself on Facebook. And I don't have a lot of bells and whistles. I have all the things, but like I haven't updated my LinkedIn. I'm gonna be real honest. By the way, you'll always get straight up honest, real from me. So,
That's awesome.
but I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on all those places, but the best place is just always feel free to drop me a message on Facebook. I mean,
Awesome.
I'm
Beautiful.
I'm the kid next door for you.
Well, that makes you so approachable and easy to connect with. So thank you so much, Jackie.
You're welcome, and thanks for having
being
me.
so authentic and so true to your heart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that because that is my mission. And I want to help as many people feel like they can do the same.
Yes. Well, we're on a similar mission. So I think the world would just be so much better if we all did that.
Yeah. That's why I love
So
your title.
To our audience, keep following your heart to the prosperity you desire and always be that brilliant light in someone's dark night.
Yes.